is on the northeast coast of Canada. It was discovered by John Haddock in 1497, and they became a province of Canada in 1947, even though they wanted to become a part of the United States. And Canada has treated them unkindly. And these people are from English and Irish descent, and they came to Newfoundland for fishing, and they became very disappointed. They have a very, very special dialect and their own dictionary, and when they talk, they say "I is" instead of "I was," or they end their sentences with "me dear" or "me honey." And if you're around in the Newfies, you usually want to not getting up. That's how friendly and charming they are. And they have a very harsh winter. The winters are minus 20 to 30, and the summer is about 50 degrees. So they are used to the harsh life. If you see some of these slides, you see the cliffs. And back in the old days, they've had to do a lot of rescuing of shipwrecks, even to put ropes down over the cliffs to bring people up. So they are used to this kind of life. And there was even an airplane that crashed coming home with the 101st Army Infantry troops on them. So they had to handle that emergency. So you know that they're a very tough and caring people. And you can see from the slides what the weather is like out there. And their time zone, they're now on 30 minutes earlier than us, because St. John's in Newfoundland goes on solar time. And the streets, when they designed it, they began to put it in the shape of a gander and fish head. Makes them very unique. Now, their unemployment rate back around that time, September 11, 2001, was around 16%. Their main industry had been lumber, and then they had a forest fire to kill all the forest. So they hoped to count on fishing, and Canada sent treaties to other countries to take over the fishing industry. So the only thing they had left was aviation, and they hoped that this would be their main industry. And we'll see that this is going to change. The population is 10,000 people. They never lock their doors. And this is important in this story. And they learned to count on one another. And they had this great willingness to help others, regardless. And they call themselves Newfies, so they would be the Newfies. On September 11th, there were 250 planes with 43,890 people who were diverted to Canada. 38 of those planes, with about 6,700 people, landed in Gander. And they went over to the commander of the airport to leave the message. It was about 9:30 in the morning, so that's how much time they had to get ready to accept these passengers. And they had 40 comptrollers, and of course, this airport was shared between the United States, England, and Canada, and it opened in 1938. At that time, it was the largest airport. It's been replaced by Dubai and Saudi Arabia now. And they accommodated all the heaviest planes during World War II, and so that's why I said I hope that this town was aviation. But after the war, things changed, because during the war it was the fighter jets, and plus they had a big military base there. They had increased population, churches were filled, they were thriving. But then the change was aeronautics, the jet planes. So eventually only the commercial and private jets started landing in Gander. And it was also considered to be a place for where the space shuttle would land in the future. They also served as a place of asylum They also had West Germans before the Berlin Wall went down, who would come and fly gander. They would go to an office set with a German embassy there, and then they would fly back to East Germany. So that's how we got around the Berlin Wall. So they were very, very busy. They have the same social agencies that we do: the Lions Club, Salvation Army, Red Cross, Knights of Columbus, and these were all very necessary in this period of time. And they opened up all their churches, all the schools, even homes. Some people had 5 families in their homes. But if they saw a family that was in need, they would come to my place, and they would take care of them. And there was even an Irish woman who said to her husband, I said, there's an Irish plane out there bringing home some Irish people. So that's just how they work. And they did this. The commander sent the word out by what the time was rumors that everybody was eating. And it was a school bus strike at the time, and the school bus driver said, we're going, they're in this. So they gave up their strike. And they went into action. The food was prepared by local people plus the catering business, and they had the plan. There were 40 countries and 100 nations coming to visit them. So they had to plan meals for all of these people. So they went into action there. And they had cable TVs and phone lines, but their phone lines were not the same as ours. So when the people landed in the planes, they couldn't use their cell phones to find out what was going on. Because whenever the comptrollers talked to the pilots, they just told them that the airspace in the United States was closed. They didn't know why. Some of them, they did start telling them, they said, it's up to you to tell your passengers. So the pilots didn't tell them until they were landing what was going on. And of course, then they still were getting a lot of information. So you know these people were scared. And then eventually the cable TV company set up cable because they didn't have people for the TVs, and they put TVs in the airport, and so people could see and fear hit their faces when they saw what had happened. And also they provided tables with telephones so that they could call, and all telephone calls were free. They also provided golf, they had free tours, share their vehicles, they could just say to somebody, you want to go somewhere, here's the car. And of course, they had swimming and boating, and the greatest thing of all was the relationships that developed. Because these people were there about 5 to 6 days. They expected 24 hours, but that didn't work out. So, and the people did not pay for any clothing or any supplies. And when they left the airplanes, all they could take with them was their backpacks because they had to check for bombs. Make sure there wasn't a terrorist on one of those planes that they had received. So they had their backpacks, and after they would leave the plane, it took 24 hours for all planes, people to leave the planes. And when they went in and checked for bombs, they just this bottle on the back of one plane, and they said, don't touch that. And I kept walking, he said, don't touch it. And he picked it up, and here it was, aluminum bottle with Danish liquor. So the pilot knew that that wasn't a bomb. But they had also had to go through their check their suitcases too. So these people were fearful. They had no clothing. They didn't know what was happening to them. And their drug prescriptions were 1,000 drug prescriptions filled in 24 hours. And this was done for free. And what they did, the pharmacists in the town contacted hospitals who went through all different countries, different languages to get prescriptions for people. This, if you ever want to read, this is the book to read. It's a fantastic book. This is the airport, the commander. Sarah. This is the airport, see here, the passengers only have backpacks. And this is the Delta and the passengers. And here is preparation for the food. You can see them serving. All the schools closed down that day, and all the school children became servers for food. They cleaned up the laundry, they cleaned the packs, they helped their caretakers get everything ready. And so they were very busy. Some of them even went and had to do a volunteer in the grocery stores because it needed so much help. But the youth were very involved in this as well. This is where they slept. You can see the cots everywhere. There were some Moldavians that came from around Romania, and they were a small group, so the Baptist church took them in. There were only a few members left since the military left and their churches were not active. So they took them in, but unfortunately Moldavians did not speak English, so they had to use a lot of gestures. And you can imagine how much fun it was communicating, but they did well. And you know, in situations like that, you know that you can do that. This is one of the hotels. The pilots and the stewardesses, by regulations, had to stay in hotels. They did not go to the other places where the people were sheltered. And the big store here is the Canadian Tire Company. These people, there were two women who decided they didn't know when to stay in these shelters. So they went to Walmart first, but had to close. And they took their cart into the Canadian Tire and got a tent. And Canadian Tire told them that if they needed supplies from Walmart, they could pay for it. So they spent no money. Canadian Tire paid for this, totally. Canadian Tire paid for a lot of expenses that these people had. They provided money for the toys. They had to go out of town because at that time, in that season, they didn't have a lot of toys. So they paid for the tire truck and for all the toys that was necessary, so every child had one. So this is a very special company back then. And you can see some of the other stores over there. But nobody was charged for anything when they're staying in the area. And then in the schools, the president and vice president of Rockefeller Center needed to do some computer work. So they went to the school, and they only had faxes too. So the teachers there helped them get their work done. And I'll say this for later, but they were so appreciative of what the teachers were doing for them, that they supported them. And some of the people, until they could get phone service that they could talk to people back home, some of them didn't even know they were in Newfoundland. They thought they were in Nova Scotia or someplace else. So there was a lot of communication errors there. And they would come here and they would write out their message, and then they would fax a message to their family back home so that they knew they were safe. So you can see in this addition of the computers here. And then the library was even important. And normally, you know, people used to go to the library for reading that kind of thing. But because of what all the visitors saw in the town of England, and the type of people that they were. They wanted to learn more about Gaynor, so they had to open their hours to like 10 o'clock at night so that people could find out where they were staying. And then this is the commander of the Rocky Mountain Police in Canada. And he's important because the visitors would come up to him and say, "Where's your uniform?" Because they were used to seeing Preston Econ on TV. And what he did, he got permission from his fire commanders. And when the people were leaving, they processed all the passports ahead of time so people didn't have to go through that. He put on the uniform and he gave their passport and gave them a hug so that they got to see a real gun. So you can see these people really went out of the way. They worked hard, they had fun, and their relationships were outstanding. And some, I guess, have lasted for years and years. And also, they had animals on the airplanes. And one of the workers with the SPCA went to the airport and said, are there any animals on the airplane? And they said, yes. So the helpers, all 28 planes went in, of course the animals were scared. They changed their shelter, fed them, and after they got through the 1 per day, they said, we can't keep doing this. This is just one time, one stay. So they called her the local vet, and because they had tried through the agriculture department of Canada to get permission to move these animals out, and they were neutral. So the vet, he spoke to somebody in government, and they used one of their hangers. So they moved all the animals out. And they had these little chimpanzees who were coming from Denmark to the Ohio Zoo. And they had their own caretaker. And it turned out that the female was pregnant at the time that they were in Vienna without a legacy. And then there was a little 10-month-old constable named Ralph that everybody fell in love with. So when they were at the hangar taking care of the animals, they let Ralph out to play with them. And then towards the end of the day, he started limping, so they had to call the vet. And they did x-rays, everything, couldn't find anything wrong. So when they questioned Dad, it turned out that the unique crew liked Ralph too. So Ralph never got any rest. So after that episode, Ralph got some rest, that he would be okay. And they supplied all the food for these animals. And then there's two other stories here. There were two families who had just adopted children from Kazakhstan and Russia. And they had a rough time in Russia because of the paperwork and all that, and then having to have these two children with this strange experiences going on. But some of the families could do it, to have them come in, take a shower, they can tell them stay here and rest and take it easy until you feel like coming out. But they had a special room just for families. So you know that they needed to get the children out. Because one cries, more cries. So they did that. There was a family whose son was a firefighter in New York City. And they were very, very stressed about their son. So one family took them into their home and comforted them. And it wasn't too after they got back home that they found out that he had died. So that was a rough journey for them. And there was an Indian girl who spoke no English. She was coming to stay with her relatives in the United States. And she had spent her last Monday there in Denver, so one of the families gave her money to carry her until she got home. They also had a prince and his family. They had to give them a cabin, and the prince wasn't very happy about that, but he took it. And the last family, the last person, is kind of what makes the story even special. There was a rabbi who was on the plane. He was going to New York to visit the grave of his very special friend. We went back to London. And he stayed with the family because he had special food needs and that. And Gander. So I went and talked to the police, and in London, the rabbi worked with youth on drugs. And they had 80% of kids on drugs in London at that time. And the police said, well, here it's 10%. But what was different in Indiana is that the youth and the parents worked together in the community. That was what the that was the connection. The rabbi, that's what I was here for. But later on, the rabbi said, are there any other Jewish people in Gander? And he said, well, not that we know of, because the synagogue was 200 miles away. So the people asked him, and he had this man by the name of Drake, heard about him, and said, I need to go see him, because he had a fever. And when he got to the rabbi, he said, I held the secret in for a long time. He said, I just told my wife and my children recently, but he said, I need to tell it to you now. They said, my family were Polish. And he was about 5 years old when the Nazis took over, and they were afraid that they would take them all to the camps. So they got the boy to London, where a family adopted him, and they told him, don't you ever tell anybody that you're Jewish. And he said, I've lived with that secret all these years and gone to Catholic church. But he said to the rabbi, he said, I have to ask you to forgive now. And after that, the rabbi said, now I truly know why I am here in the end. But these are just some of the stories of the people, but they were amazing people and relationships here. And Gander people are very, very funny and so gracious. They have this lovely thing called Shot Screech. And everybody wanted to be initiated as a newbie. So the procedure was that they had to go through this litany of statements, and then they had to kiss a codfish. And this codfish was used over a couple of days, so it wasn't very safe. And then they got their own certificate, and they got to drink the true Gander, what's the wicked stuff from Mexico? Something like that. But they got to drink that, and that was their initiation. So that ended their night. So that was a great, great event for them. And one other story is the one plane had children coming to Disney World, and they were afraid that they wouldn't get to see Disney World. So what the teachers did was put on their event, and they had their Gander Goose cartoon and their other characters, and they put on play for the children, and the children loved it. And anybody who had a birthday when they were in Gander had a birthday party. And but people just did everything and had so much fun, even though they were working very hard. Now these are some of the youths who were there at the time. The first two you see, he is an attorney and she's a teacher, and they live in Gander. And their household, the woman's household, they had 5 families at the time of this event. And after they got married, because of what happened with that event, they wanted to see some of the lands that where the people were from, so they were traveling as a hobby. The man on the left, he became a doctor because when he was serving food and helping people with food, he was just amazed that he had never met anybody outside Canada. So for him, it was a life experience. And so he wanted to help other people, so he became a doctor. And the 2 girls on the bottom, they were high school friends. And luckily, their teacher got software for media production. So the one on the left, she was able to go to the airport and record this information. And the other poor girl had to work in the grocery store. Right now, she made the right change. So the life of the youth in Gander were also affected by what happened. Then everything changed for the people of Gander. The Rockefellers gave the school $15,000 for new computers, and the teachers weren't sure if they wanted to take it, but they gave it to them anyhow. And then there was a priest who helped the needy. They gave him $11,000. And then on the Delta plane, when they were getting ready to leave, there was this Dr. Ferguson from Virginia. And he mentioned to the passengers about gathering some money to give to these people for what they had done. So on the airplane, they raised, let's see, I think it was around 1,500, something like, no, it was more than that. But the doctor matched it. And eventually they were able to get $1.5 million for scholarships for 134 students in Gander to get them education. And I don't know if that website is still present, but that's how the money was collected. And then all the people who stayed in the different facilities, they all offered money to pay, but a lot of them were refused by the people of Gander. And the phone bill that they refused any money for was $13,000. So you know that these people really gave their hearts. They truly had faith in God. And the other thing that, what has changed, remember that aviation would not be their number one choice after a while. What happens, the movie film writers and producers in New York City went together and they put together this play called Come Follow Me, and made world news. Plus they started a theater in Gander and also put this play on. So the people became known worldwide because of this. And then in St. John, they started a television show called Hudson and Rex. And if you want to watch it, it's fantastic. And it's on Up TV. But you can get to see some of the beautiful surroundings there in Newfoundland. So things started changing for people of Gander. And then the people of Gander sent a plaque from Gander to New York City to be displayed. And then the memorial sent some of the arts from New York City to be displayed in Gander. So lives were changed that day, both in Gander and from the visitors. And this is the best story that I know of how outreaches are accomplished. And when you do it, you have to practice it. And you practice it over and over, as you can see they did in Gander. And you need to evaluate the situation and deal with the fear and all the problems that come out and be prepared. And you have to supply the essential needs, which they did. Develop relationships, and let God lead you through that whole experience. And you will become amazed at the accomplishments, because all lives change. So the new industry of Gander is now tourism. So, like something they never anticipated turned out big and did great results. And this is what outreach does in the world. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, you take us into situations and you constantly mold us and change us so that we can know there's something new that you can lead us where we accomplish good for you. Amen.